Hey, 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 Jordan Sheridan, live for you. It is July 10th, 5 p.m. on the East Coast. Let me make sure I'm being seen and heard on the YouTube. Give me a minute, folks. Do 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 do. All right, here we go. All right, I see 3 viewers, 4 viewers. Can we get 5? Can we get 6? Hope everyone's having a lovely day. I have not been live for a little bit as I've been a little sick. My gosh, I don't know, but all of a sudden, the allergies. I've gone 31 years, fairly decent when it comes to allergies. I hit 31, and all of a sudden, allergies have taken me out. Taken me out, folks. So I've been scratchy throat. If you hear that I'm a little raspy, that's why. Very congested, feeling exhausted, so I'm resting up, trying to get the right allergy medication that I could take on a daily basis. So apologies if I haven't been live recently. We'll wait just a minute or two, let some more viewers come in. It's quite interesting. Maybe 5 o'clock or 5:15 is not the right time to go, because every time I go live at 5 o'clock, the viewership takes a while to go up, but when I go live earlier in the day, viewership is up right away. So very interesting. But let me know if you could hear me. Let me know if you could see me. I am wearing my, hold on, Make America Sane Again shirt. Make America Sane Again. Full disclosure, my uncle makes these shirts and hats. If you want one, it's makeamericasane.com. Makeamericasane.com. Right now is not a very sane time, as we saw with Trump's Supreme Court pick last night. Jen, heyo, $4.99. Yes, I should say, the Super Chat is alive and well. You could leave funds on the Super Chat. So definitely, if you support my work, if you support the work of the eventual company we're going to launch, definitely, you could leave $4.99, $10.99, $50.99, whatever you want. You can leave right here, Super Chat. We are now monetized. So thank you, Jen, for starting us off. Joseph, hey, Jordan. Hi from Tim Canova. I remember you, Joseph. I hope you're doing well. I enjoyed speaking with you down in the very, very humid Broward County in August. What was that? August 2016. Canova is now running as an independent, if everyone's paying attention. So he's trying to take Debbie Wasserman Schultz out. And he basically jumped out of the Democratic Party, and good for him. And he's running as an independent now. I might be in that neck of the woods soon. So if I am, I look forward to interviewing Tim as well as some of his volunteers. Again, his race against Debbie Wasserman Schultz will be the general election this year. But I think it's a very, very insane time, and I measure sanity both what I see out in the field. I was just in Flint for a few weeks. I'm working on a story with Flint, which hopefully will be out in the next 2 weeks. And this story on Flint, probably the biggest thing I've ever worked on. I have a major media outlet that I'm doing it for. I believe it will show pretty much explosive bombshell corruption that went on there during the water crisis, and it will show kind of what I've been saying, and a lot of residents have been saying for quite some time now, that the declarations made by the state, the governor, not exactly what they seem. Not exactly what they seem. So definitely hold out for that. I'll be coming out with that probably in the next 2 weeks. Right now it's in the writing and editing phase. So, but as you know, Trump picked his Supreme Court nominee last night. I was not surprised who it was. It was Brett Kavanaugh, who might as well be the leading right-winger that was up for the court. He is considered in right-wing circles to be an all-star. He is considered to be very, very conservative, to the point where essentially he was the Koch brothers' preferred pick. The Koch brothers essentially, through backroom communication, said, if you don't pick this guy, we're not going to drop hundreds of millions of dollars into the midterm elections for the Republicans. That was basically what happened here. The Koch brothers decided on Brett Kavanaugh and threatened Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and by extension Donald Trump. That if you don't give us who we want, we're not going to give you the money you need to keep the House, keep the Senate, all that good stuff. And share this video. Let's get it out to more people. Because YouTube, as we know, YouTube doesn't particularly like notifying people when I or other progressive media are live. Which is a problem. Definitely a problem. But I digress. So, let's go. All you got to say about this pick is he basically has Trump's mind in a legal robe. He is the apple of Trump's eye. He believes in unprecedented executive powers for the president. He believes essentially that the president can decide if something's can make decisions if he thinks something should be unconstitutional. Not if something is unconstitutional, but if he should be unconstitutional. So, Brett Kavanaugh, here we go. La-da-dee, la-da-da. What will be, will be. So, Judge Brett Kavanaugh was appointed to the Supreme Court last night. He still has to go through nominations, all that good stuff. But this is from ABC. If Judge Kavanaugh becomes Justice Kavanaugh, it will be the greatest triumph of the Federalist Society. Not exactly a progressive institution. Very right-wing. Kavanaugh's nomination has sparked a great deal of concern on the left about issues like abortion, affirmative action, gay rights, and other social issues. There's another issue, however, where Kavanaugh has staked out strikingly hard right positions, executive power. And this is where I think Trump really made his decision based on. That Kavanaugh essentially believes in blanket powers for the president. Before becoming a judge, Kavanaugh spent most of his career working for the executive branch of the federal government in the Justice Department under President George H.W. Bush, in Ken Starr's office of independent counsel. Ken Starr obviously went after Clinton on impeachment, in the White House counsel under George W. Bush, and finally as President Bush's White House staff secretary. Now, these increasingly powerful and yet professionally narrow positions seem to have given Kavanaugh a sweeping, even unbalanced view of how powerful presidents should be under the law. Well, if you're a president that has, whether we agree with it or not, has a criminal investigation underway, and eventually, if Mueller brings charges against him, potentially could go to the Supreme Court upon appeal, Trump's going to want somebody who believes in very big powers for the executive branch and the president, particularly in the area of whether a president can obstruct justice. So, for instance, on the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, Kavanaugh has argued for expansive presidential authority in what used to be called the global war on terror, especially when it comes to the incarceration and treatment of accused enemy combatants. So, in this case, seems like he is the apple of Trump's eye, as well as probably George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and the whole neoconservative gang, including Bill Kristol. Kavanaugh's also called for overturning a landmark 1935 New Deal-era Supreme Court opinion that for 83 years has been one of the foundations of modern American governance. It's called Humphrey's Executor, First United States. And in it, a unanimous Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of independent agencies like the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the Federal Election Commission, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and many dozens more. Kavanaugh's views, though, the very independence of these agencies as an unconstitutional infringement of the power of the president. To be sure, the president has the duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Kavanaugh wrote. That certainly means the executive has to follow and comply with laws regulating the executive branch, at least unless the president deems the law unconstitutional, in which event the president can decline to follow the statute until a final court order says otherwise. Well, that's kind of scary. So this guy's basically saying, a president can basically decide whether something is unconstitutional, and as a result, if he thinks something is unconstitutional, he can decline to follow the statute until a final court order says otherwise. You better believe that was presented to this president, who's not a big believer in following precedent, statute, or that he has to comply with laws. So if anything, I don't think Trump picked him particularly because he might overturn Roe versus Wade or because he will be a rubber stamp for conservative policies. I think he picked the person who, in ink, has basically put in writing that I believe the president should have unlimited powers and could even decide whether something's unconstitutional, which should scare every single person. Every single person. Progressive, neoliberal, conservative, doesn't matter. Very, very scary. And he has called on Congress to protect presidents from the exact same kind of wide-ranging probe he enthusiastically participated in when he worked as a key aide to Ken Starr's investigation of Bill Clinton. Quote, Congress should give back to the president the full power to act when he believes that a particular independent counsel is out to get him. Such a step not only would make the special counsel accountable, but it would also force the president and his surrogates to put up or shut up. Can anyone say Robert Mueller there? I mean, whether you agree with the Mueller investigation or not, I mean, this is pretty much speaking to Robert Mueller. Congress should give back to the president the full power to act when he believes that a particular independent counsel is out to get him. Such a step not only would make the special counsel accountable, but it would also force the president and his surrogates to put up or shut up. So, right there, folks, you got, I mean, this guy, Kavanaugh, is an authoritarian. He believes in authoritarianism. He believes in unlimited power for a president or dictator or whatever you want to call it. That's what he believes. So it's kind of a match made in heaven or hell or whatever you want to say with Trump. Because Trump deems himself as an autocrat or, totalitarian, autocrat, whatever you want to say. Trump does not believe laws apply to him. Trump believes the power of the president oversteps the power of Congress, the power of the judiciary, pretty much any other powers. So this guy is scary. I don't particularly see anything that makes me think he is an automatic to overturn Roe versus Wade. I looked into his background. He's actually on the record as saying Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. So I don't think, liberals are rightly worried about that, especially women. I don't think he is automatic as the female judge that was in the final running, who is a social conservative, and I think we'd have a lot more problems if she were the pick for Roe versus Wade. But what I do think is, as long as Donald Trump is president, he has an ally in the Supreme Court that basically believes the president is a king and could choose to do things based on whether he thinks a law is unconstitutional, can choose to rein in a special counsel if he thinks the special counsel needs to be reined in. For the three branches of government, and the judicial branch is supposed to be part of that checks and balances, Brett Kavanaugh doesn't particularly think, he doesn't seem like he believes that much in checks and balances and three equal branches of government. Seems like he believes the president is way more powerful and should have way more power than the Congress as well as the judiciary. And that is scary. So I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig here. It's a very conservative pick. I think he is about the same as Neil Gorsuch. I don't think he's any worse or any better. I do think Kennedy, who's retiring, was considered the swing judge and often ruled with the liberals. I don't think you'll see Brett Kavanaugh rule with the liberals on the court often. So it is a setback. There's no mistake. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Brett Kavanaugh is not who you would want on the Supreme Court. With that said, now it comes down to is the Democratic Party, who we know is bought off. I mean, that is a whole nother story, which I'm about to get to. Because boy, did I get some heat. Boy, did I get some heat on Twitter last night. Apparently, I'm responsible for Trump being elected, as well as Brett Kavanaugh being appointed to the Supreme Court. So I'll show you that in a minute. But will the Democratic Party actually fight this nomination? Will they take it to the mat? Will they do everything within their power to make sure this is delayed, and he can't get nominated. I'm going to give you, if you think back to DACA, have a Democratic, the DACA fight, I think in March, have a Democratic Party fought for about a day and then gave in. I think you're going to see the same thing. I also don't think there's a chance in hell that you're going to see Senator Joe Manchin up for re-election, tough challenge in November. Senator Joe Donnelly of Indiana up for re-election, tough challenge in November. Senator Heidi Heitkamp up for re-election, hard general election. These are not actual progressives. They're barely even Democrats. They're Republicans. They're not going to put their political career at stake and try to block President Trump's nominee. They're just not going to do it. But it is possible on the other side. There's murmurs that Rand Paul is a little lukewarm on him. I would have a very, very hard time seeing Rand Paul actually choosing to block Trump's Supreme Court nominee. I think he's lukewarm on him because Kavanaugh basically thinks we should have unlimited powers to go to war, combat the war on terror. Let me find that part here. War on terror. Yeah, so for instance, on the federal appeals court in Washington, Kavanaugh has argued for expansive presidential authority in what he called the global war on terror, especially when it comes to the incarceration and treatment of enemy combatants. So that's what Rand Paul is hung up on, as everybody should be hung up on. If it's not bad enough that we're at war right now with 7 or 8 countries, I don't think we need a Supreme Court justice that says, let's just have unlimited war for the global war on terror. So Rand Paul is not an automatic. I also think Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, 2 Republican women, are not automatic unless he is a firm, I believe Roe versus Wade is the law of the land. So I also think Doug Jones, recently elected in Alabama, who pretty much has voted with the Republicans on just about anything, will probably vote for Brett Kavanaugh. So you have 4, possibly 5 Democrats that might vote for this guy, but you have 3 Republicans who might not. And by the way, nobody's talking about this, but it is possible. I don't know what John McCain has said. If somebody has seen if John McCain has said he will vote for him, let me know. I haven't seen anything about what John McCain will do, who, you know, obviously is dealing with brain cancer and is not returning to the Senate anytime soon. To my knowledge, it's terminal. So, and for those of you coming late, I am now super, so you could get in on this super chat if you want to leave a couple bucks. Support us. We're getting back on the field probably in the next 2 weeks. I'll announce what we're doing at the end of this live stream. Danielle Becerra, $2. Thank you, Danielle. Nice work on Houston. In Houston, appreciate it. Yeah. Sam Oser, who is terrific. She's a local Houston journalist, did a great live stream last night on some of the real shenanigans going on in Houston. I think Houston is one of the most right-wing cities in America. It's really scary. The things going on there. It's basically been sold to developers, fossil fuel companies, and the Democratic Party is very corrupt in Houston. So Sam will be going live more on this channel. And we also, I'm happy to announce, will be changing this channel to Status Coup very, very soon. Sooner than I had anticipated. So we're going to be morphing Jordan Sheridan Reports into Status Coup very soon, which will mean a brand new website, which will mean this YouTube channel is going to become the Status Coup YouTube channel. We're also working on a mini documentary from our reporting in Flint just now. So I have a lot of announcements I'll make at the end. But thank you to everyone who's leaving super chat funds, and thank you to everyone who's a Patreon. There you go. I don't have the sign behind me anymore. I have it digitally. That's the original patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Report sign that was so beautifully drawn in by my business partner, Jen Dice. So you guys, thank you for signing up. and being monthly Patreons. You could do it as low as $1, $2, $5, $10. I'm going to get back this week to doing my podcast, which is for Patreon subscribers only, my video diaries, and I believe we're going to do this weekend a monthly video call with our Patreon subscribers, which is just for Patreon. So if you're not subscribed to Patreon, I hope you'll consider it. This is what's going to help us get in the field. Patreon, Super Chat contributions, jordanchariton.com/sponsor, all of those things. So thank you very much. Now, and share this video. Let's get this out to as many people as we can. Now that we know Brett Kavanaugh is a Supreme Court nominee, now that we know it's very, very unlikely that the Democrats are going to put up a fight. I would actually be shocked if the Democrats put up a fight, because the Democratic Party are a bunch of weaselly wimps. And they're also corrupt. I do not believe. Oh, look, BFF, Ty Bayless is in the live chat. That's Tommy Tahifi Bayless in the live chat. Ty, let him know what you're working on there. Type it in. Ty is working on a mini doc because we are about to break a massive story in Flint. When I say massive, I mean like this potentially some people might be going to jail. Some people might be going to jail. And some things might be changing in Flint based on what we've uncovered. So Ty is taking the footage. We knocked on 400 doors. 400 doors in Flint in 2 weeks. That's called journalism. We don't just report what the government tells us. We knocked on doors to make sure that what the government was saying was actually the truth. And guess what? Guess what? It's not. Guess what? When journalists actually knock on doors, you could find out when the government is doing wrong. You could find out when the government is lying. You could find out when the government is corrupt. So we have an amazing footage. Ty joined us, and he's working on that mini doc now. Hopefully that mini doc will be ready when we launch Status Coup, and we'll be putting it on our site. And we have a lot of other things in the works, but Status Coup will be launched rather soon. So Brett Kavanaugh, there's no sugarcoating it. Bad news. We should be worried about Brett Kavanaugh. I don't think it radically changes things, only because the Supreme Court was 5-4 with Anthony Kennedy. It's still 5-4 with Brett Kavanaugh. The only difference is I think you're going to see Kavanaugh voting with the liberals less, whereas Kennedy voted with the liberals more. So it definitely is a way more conservative, reliable conservative pick than Anthony Kennedy. So what I want to get to now, boy, do disgruntled establishment, Hillbot, Democratic Party stalwarts, whenever something bad goes, their immediate reaction is to attack people that criticized Hillary Clinton. Their immediate reaction is to attack people that might not go with the lesser of two evils, might not be on board with, yeah, let's continually take, instead of taking poison, let's take getting shot. They don't like people that aren't like them, that they don't like me, they don't like Jimmy, they don't like people that don't subscribe to the lesser of two evils. And boy, last night I was out for a little bit, and I looked down at my Twitter notification. I'm like, holy crap, I have way more Twitter mentions and notifications than normal, because apparently I was Satan. Because now all of a sudden that Brett Kavanaugh was picked, it's my fault. And people, it's like the Susan Sarandon thing. People want an apology from me. People want to know, do I still feel the way I felt? So let me show you just an example of this last night. Here's my tweet from September 2016, where I said 4 years of Trump is better than 8 years of Clinton. Don't distort my words. So this guy, Andy, who wrote to me last year, is this holding up well? Keep getting that Buddy Romer cash though, boo. I don't know what he's talking about. I've never spoken with Buddy Romer in my life. So I don't know what cash he's talking about. Maybe he's talking about money Buddy Romer gave to the Young Turks. That's probably it. But last night he wrote, still feeling good about this one, Jordan? So that was just one example of the heat at me, because apparently I'm responsible. Then you had this guy, apparently it's white privilege. I'm white privileged. That I don't vote for the lesser of two evils. That's an example of white privilege. So I wrote last night, I said, I've addressed this before many times and have done so tonight as well. If you and others feel better taking your Trump angst out on folks like me, by all means. It's that mindset, rather than going at bought-off establishment Democrats primed to lose to him again, that'll result in his reelection. So that's what I wrote. I said, you could spend your time going after me and Jimmy Dore and anyone who basically didn't endorse voting for Hillary Clinton. Mind you, I never, and Jimmy never, and people like us never said vote for Donald Trump. We just didn't endorse Hillary Clinton. That's a different thing. But these people choose, whenever they're upset, I guess now with the Supreme Court pick, to go after me, Jimmy, and other people. So he wrote, see, this is stupid, bought-off Dems. No mention of bought-off GOP. Trump angst on me, says the white male not really affected by his policies. Doubling down on not voting for Democrats because they don't make his purity test. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more before I respond. So I said, this is a continuation. Basically, we have a system of systemic corruption, legalized bribery, gentrification, police terrorism, and more being executed by both Democrats and the Republican Party. It was happening before Donald Trump. Have things become worse? 100%. I don't want to minimize that. But I also don't think you would be seeing, and I wrote about the explosion of activism, protest, and progressive energy if Hillary Clinton were president. So then this guy says, that ain't your boy. So if you admit it's worse under Trump, then you're admitting it would be better under Hillary or any other Dem, which is the whole point of lesser of two evils. Okay. So before I respond, because I was, I'm a journalist. I don't mind criticism, especially of things I tweet. I own it. People don't have to agree with me. I'm not going to hide from it. But what I find so interesting here, so I said when asked, I think I was at the Young Turks still, what to me is worse, 4 years of Trump or 8 years of Hillary Clinton? I said 8 years of Hillary Clinton. You want to know what I think today? Some people are going to get mad at me. Some people could say I have white privilege, which I think is absurd. I still think it's worse to have 8 years of Hillary Clinton. And I'll tell you why. Do I think 4 years of Donald Trump is better than 4 years of Hillary Clinton? No, I don't. In a vacuum, one term, I would take Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't like it, but you put a gun to my head? Yeah, I'd rather Hillary Clinton for one term. But I was taking the long view. Because I believe, and I believed it in 2016, I believe it's stronger now. I thought it would be very unlikely that Trump gets reelected if there is a progressive movement explosion and we run an actual progressive in 2020. Right now, we're having the progressive movement explosion. We are. We're starting to see victories of actual progressives. We're seeing an unprecedented amount of progressives running, including women. We're starting to see progressive victories on the local level, including the Democratic Socialists of America. I do not think you would have seen this under President Hillary Clinton. I don't. We saw progressives and liberals generally go to sleep under Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. Let me continue. So I took the long view. If you put Trump, Hillary, both only get one term, yeah, I think Hillary would be less bad. I do. A lot of you might not like that, but that's what I believe. But 8 years of Hillary Clinton, I believe, would be worse than 4 of Trump. Now, if you don't want to follow me because that's what I believe, then don't follow me. If you think I'm white privileged, I disagree. I believe actions speak louder than words. Okay? 9 out of 10 stories I cover are in underprivileged, vulnerable, and frankly minority communities. what I generally cover and gravitate towards are underprivileged, taken advantage of, and the most vulnerable communities. But here is what I also believe, that that kind black gentleman who was tweeting at me saying I have white privilege is missing. And what I've been saying all along, and I think Jimmy Dore does a great job saying this, Trump has made things worse. But things were not better before Trump. All you have to do is go out into the country to see that. The two worst pieces of legislation for African Americans over the last 20 years happened under President Bill Clinton. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. Welfare reform, which disproportionately screwed African Americans, happened under a Democratic president. The crime bill happened under President Bill Clinton. Right? The Wall Street crash in 2008, which, frankly, repealing Glass-Steagall under Bill Clinton played a large part in the Wall Street crash in 2008, disproportionately harmed African Americans. I'm not speaking as a privileged white guy to tell you that, and it's not my opinion. That is a fact. That is the data. The only difference between Trump and Hillary or Obama or Bill Clinton, the racism, the economic racism, the de-investment to black communities, the de-investment to poor communities under Democrats goes in silence. There isn't an outcry against it because those politicians don't sound as reprehensible. Those politicians don't tweet reprehensible things. Those politicians don't talk about grabbing women by the genitals. Those politicians are not as viscerally disgusting and vile. But the effects of the policies that have happened under Democrats have been just as harmful to African Americans. So the two things could be true. I could say that on one hand, while also believing Donald Trump has made things 10 times worse, which I do believe. I do believe Trump has made things worse. I do believe Trump's policies are very harmful to black people and poor white people. But I have been to Detroit. I have been to Flint. I have been to East Chicago, Indiana. I have been to Milwaukee. I have been to Cleveland. And I didn't just drop by. I've spent some time there. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people in these communities. And I can tell you, to the people foaming at the mouth on Twitter to go after me and Jimmy and all these people, I could take it. I could take it. It's not bothering me. But you are living in a glass house if you think things are 100 times worse under Trump for black and brown people. Brown people, yes. Barack Obama suspended habeas corpus. Barack Obama didn't do anything economically for poor black communities. Barack Obama continued the deregulation of Wall Street. Barack Obama did nothing and made his Justice Department do nothing, as we saw an explosion in police brutality over the last decade. Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Jordan Davis, Michael Brown, Obama. Ferguson, brutalizing American citizens, mostly black, happened under Obama. Standing Rock, brutalizing indigenous citizens, environmental activists, unarmed, Obama. Affordable Care Act, a positive thing. Not what I want, not what we need, did happen under Obama, and he deserves credit. So, is Trump worse? Has he made things worse? Absolutely. But what I'm saying is I want actual change. Real change, not like milk toast, you know, the slow hope of gradualism and incrementalism. That's why I did not speak openly, you know what, eat your vegetables, we got to vote for Hillary Clinton, because that's what we're going to get is Donald Trump. I believed in 2016, and I believe now that the damage Trump does, thank you, do not concede. $5. Thank you for that. I believe that the damage Trump could do in 4 years is reversible. I believe if the Democratic Party would get out of the way of the movement, of the energy, and frankly demographics, that Trump would be crushed in a general election. And a lot of what he has done can be reversed. The worst thing Trump is doing, frankly, that is doing lasting damage, which is going to be very hard to reverse, is the environment. And I've said it repeatedly on air that I was wrong about Trump on the environment. Hillary Clinton, she pushes fracking. She's not great on the environment at all. But she would be better than Trump on the environment. That is for sure. But this notion, every time something bad happens, oh, Jordan, are you happy? Do you still stand by what you said? Hey, Susan Sarandon, when are you going to apologize? Is there no culpability in the Democratic Party? Where is your tweets to Tom Perez? Where is your tweets to Hillary Clinton? Where is your tweets to Chuck Schumer, to Nancy Pelosi, who have lost 1,000 seats over the last decade? Where is your tweets to fellow African Americans? 5% less black people came out for Hillary Clinton compared to Obama in 2012. What about the 6% less Latinos that came out for Hillary Clinton? When did you email? Are you tweeting them? Is it their fault too? 5% less black people, 6% less Latinos, 18 to 29. 5% less 18 to 29 came out for Hillary Clinton. Is that every group's fault? Is that my fault? Or maybe is there some accountability that the actual nominee has for, I don't know, not inspiring people to come out? I don't know, not pushing policies that the majority of people want? It's not a voter's responsibility to vote for candidates that don't inspire them. It's not a voter's responsibility to suck it up and just keep voting for the person that's going to screw you less. It is the candidate's responsibility to convince the voter to vote for them. This is not a difficult concept. And if that means I'm white privileged, let me tell you something, okay? I was fired from my job in November. We all know this. I'm not going to get into it. I've already talked about it, blah, 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 blah. Okay? There have been times in my life that I had not a dollar to my name, including recently. There have been times in my life where I had no health care. There have been times in my life where I was so severely depressed that I had to be hospitalized. And I did not have full health coverage to pay for it. So you want to call me white privileged? Call me white privileged. But I believe actions speak louder than words. And the reason I feel so strongly that we cannot continue voting for the lesser of two evils, that we cannot continue this dynamic and this prism of saying, well, you know, this person is, you know, the Antichrist, so we got to take the corrupt Democrat here who's not going to help us economically, who's going to give us a lot of lip service, who might send us to war. I think if Hillary Clinton was president right now, judge her by her words and her actions and her records, it's very possible we'd be in a ground war with Syria right now. And by extension, Russia. So, if you want to come after me and other progressives who didn't do pom-poms for Hillary Clinton and act like we're responsible for Trump, act like we're responsible for Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, act that we're responsible for your girlfriend breaking up with you, act that we're responsible for your coffee machine not working this morning, whatever. That's fine. But here's what I know, because I've been to Flint 11 times. I've been to East Chicago, Indiana 6 times. I've been to St. Louis, and I was jailed as one of the only ones covering black people protesting against police murder of black people. I have been to Alabama, and where I was the only reporter there covering 74% black Birmingham, Alabama. They raised their minimum wage, and the all-white legislature blocked it. I go to cover these stories knowing these stories are not going to go viral all the time. These stories are not going to make me a superstar or make me millions of dollars through journalism. I don't care about that. I cover them because I think they're undercovered or not covered at all. And somebody needs to be a voice for these people. So I am happy to admit when I'm wrong. Is Trump worse on the environment than Hillary Clinton yet is? 100%. I was wrong about that. Is Trump worse on immigration than Hillary Clinton would be? Yeah. I don't think Hillary Clinton was great either. She's on record. She was on record years ago saying, send them back. And by the way, under Barack Obama, children were separated from their parents. Under Barack Obama, immigrants were put in detention centers in cages. The only difference? People were asleep and the media didn't cover it. So when all these people go after progressives in their glass houses that all of a sudden, on January 19th, 2017, everything was just dandy in America. But now, because Trump is president, now everything's just unprecedentedly worse. You're living in glass houses. Because I have had the fortune, and in some cases the unfortunate, to travel to between 30 and 40 states over the last 3 years. I've been to more cities than that. And I have seen up close the bipartisan, from Democrats and Republicans, the effects of de-investment in poor communities, the effects of structural racism, the effects of legalized bribery, where the politicians represent their donors and the corporations rather than the people who elected them. I've seen it, and it's happening under Democrats and Democrat presidents just as much as Republican presidents. So when you keep saying, well, you know, what did this guy say? Well, you know, that's the whole point of the lesser of two evils. I say if you continually urge the lesser of two evils, guess what? You're always going to have shit. You're always going to have no real change, and you're going to be exactly where you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And by the way, many, many people that I have met cannot afford the status quo, cannot afford a Hillary Clinton, just like they can't afford Trump, who's going to make it worse. They're hanging on a cliff. So things staying the same is just as dangerous as things getting worse. Some people don't understand that. Yeah, things getting worse, logically, is more dangerous than things staying the same. But when you're living paycheck to paycheck, when you're one crisis away from catastrophe, things staying the same is just as much of a threat. And by the way, if the Democratic Party and establishment Democrats and Hillary Clinton enthusiasts want to spend all their time going after progressives rather than asking their preferred candidates, hey, how are you going to beat Donald Trump? Hey, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Cory Booker, Kirsten Gillibrand, Kamala Harris. What are you going to do different? Because you've lost 1,000 seats. What are you going to do different to beat Trump? If you want to spend your time coming after me, that's fine. Doesn't seem like a good strategy, though, to defeat Donald Trump. You know what does seem like a good strategy to defeat Donald Trump? To be for something. I think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just showed what could happen when you're actually for something and your whole campaign is in diarrhea at the mouth about how bad Trump is. Hillary Clinton could have learned something. But there is a progressive energy right now that you would have not seen under Hillary Clinton as president. You just wouldn't. And you know what? If it means I have white privilege to say sometimes things have to get worse before they are going to get better, then call me white privileged. But I think my actions speak louder than words. And if you think I have white privilege, first of all, every white person has white privilege. 100%. I do have white privilege in certain areas, as does any white person, because we don't have a prism to understand what black people went through. When I get pulled over by the police, I don't worry about getting murdered. That is privilege, and I own that. But this notion that, oh, Jordan and Jimmy and all these people are responsible for Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court and we're just white privileged. Get the hell out of here. Why don't you go talk? Why don't you go, if you feel that, then go ask which black people didn't go out to vote for Hillary Clinton, because she had 5% less black support. Same thing for Latinos, 6%. But you ask the Democrats, what are you going to do differently? Do you have actual policies? A better deal economic plan is not a policy, it's a slogan. It means nothing. And Nancy Pelosi literally just said in a Rolling Stone interview that she is a savant legislator. I'm not kidding. She said she is a savant legislator. And she said the Democrats stand for a better deal, a.k.a. nothing. So that's what I think of that. And as a reminder to those of you who came late, you could support me and Ty and everybody else. Patreon.com/JordanSheridanReports. Endo, I am sending you the actual sign, so this is what we're putting up on screen here. And I'd say, if everything goes well, folks, we're less than a month away from launching Status Coup with myself, Ty Bayless, Jen Dyes, and maybe a few surprises to add with us. We will be launching Status Coup very soon. Ty and I will be back on the road probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We are going on a Living Survivors tour where we will be going to where deadly mass shootings have happened. We will be going where after the corporate media covered it for 3 days, they moved on. We will be going to places that school children have been murdered. We will be going to places where concert goers have been murdered. We will be going to places where movie goers have been murdered. Because Ty and I both believe this can no longer be normalized. This can no longer be normalized. And that's why we're going to put it back out there. We are going to talk to the parents of people who have been murdered, including children. We are going to talk to teachers. We are going to talk to local politicians. We might ambush a few who are bought off. Thank you, Paul. $2. I do what I can to help. And as a reminder, I'm now monetized, so this super chat, you could help me be super by contributing, because let me tell you, it costs money to do what we're talking about doing, and we need your support to do it. So, want to move on here to a story that, as far as I can tell, getting no coverage. In addition to the contamination that I've covered all over the United States, in addition to just straight up contaminated politics that we have, one of the most uncovered stories in America is the water crisis. Pretty much our water is contaminated from the east to the west to the middle. We have contaminated water. The media doesn't cover it. So we're starting to see unprecedented water contamination from nearby army bases. Army bases that have contamination in the groundwater, in the air, from certain chemicals they used. So I want to read you 2 stories here, because this is one story we'll probably cover on the road. How the EPA and the Pentagon downplayed a growing toxic threat. So just like the Pentagon downplayed the fact that we were spraying all sorts of herbicides and worse in Vietnam, which have made the Vietnamese, have killed God knows how many Vietnamese children, have maimed their faces. You look at some of the Vietnamese children from the stuff we were spraying out of planes in Vietnam. So the Pentagon has a history of lying. Let me tell you, the EPA has a history of lying. Based on the story I just covered in Flint, you're going to know about part of that lying soon. So, 2 new analyses of drinking water data and the science used to analyze it show far more people have likely been exposed to dangerous levels of PFAS, and contamination is more widespread, ProRepublica reports. The chemicals once seemed near magical, able to repel water, oil, and stains. By the 1970s, DuPont and 3M had used them to develop Teflon and Scotchgard, and they slipped into an array of everyday products from gum wrappers to sofas to frying pans to carpets. Known as perfluoric substances, or PFAS, they were a boon to the military, which used them in foam that snuffed out explosive oil and fuel fires. It's long been known that in certain concentrations, the compounds could be dangerous if they got into water or if people breathed dust or ate food that contained them. Tests showed they accumulated in the blood of chemical factory workers and residents living nearby, and studies linked some of the chemicals to cancers and birth defects. Now, 2 new analyses of drinking water data and the science used to analyze it make clear the Environmental Protection Agency and the Department of Defense have downplayed the public threat posed by these chemicals. Far more people have likely been exposed to dangerous levels of them than has previously been reported, because contamination from them is more widespread than has ever been officially acknowledged. Moreover, ProPublica has found the government's understatement of the threat appears to be no accident. Well, gee, gosh, golly, Jim, the government is lying and it's intentionally lying? You don't say, Joe. And wait till I get to my next story about there being no nerve gas or sarin gas found in Doma in Syria. I'm getting to that next. So the EPA and the Department of Defense calibrated water tests to exclude some harmful levels of contamination and only register especially high concentration of chemicals, according to the vice president of one testing company. Several prominent scientists told ProPublica that DoD chose to use tests that would identify only a handful of chemicals rather than more advanced tests that the agency's own scientists had developed, which could potentially identify the presence of hundreds of additional compounds. The first analysis, contained in an EPA contractor's PowerPoint presentation, shows that one chemical, the PFAS most understood to cause harm, is 24 times more prevalent in public drinking water than the EPA has reported. Based on this, the Environmental Working Group, an advocacy organization whose scientists have studied PFAS pollution, has estimated that as many as 110 million Americans are now at risk of being exposed to PFAS chemicals. In the second analysis, ProPublica compared how the military checks for and measures PFAS-related contamination to what's identified by more advanced tests. We found that the military relied on tests which are not capable of detecting all the PFAS chemicals it believed to be present. Even then, it underreported its results, sharing only a small part of its data. We also found that the military's own research programs had retested several of those defense sites using more advanced testing technology and identified significantly more pollution than what the military reported to Congress. Here you go, folks. I'm going to put this for you. I'm going to put this for you in the chat so you have it. Michael Downey, thank you, my friend, $25. Quote, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." He's quoting Thomas Charlton, 1809. Ooh, is Thomas Charlton related to Jordan Chariton? Because I do believe my name might have been switched from Charlton back in the day. I will have to look that up. Michael Downey, can't thank you enough for the $25. Your contributions and everybody else in the super chat, keeping us independent and helping us get out of the road. So, and my business partner Jen Dyes just showed up. She had a very long drive to make, and she's been working feverishly to get Status Quo launching. So, what up, Jennifer? Now, key things there. Is anyone beginning to see a pattern here? In Flint, oh, we'll check for lead and copper, but let's not check for bacteria and volatile compounds and other things that can cause cancer, destroy your immune system, destroy your kidneys. You know, it's called you can't find what you don't look for. So the EPA and the Defense Department, oh, we'll test for certain things, but we're not going to test for like those 24 other things that could kill you. You can't find what you're not looking for. Have I said, make America sane again? Make America sane again. This is insane. This is insane. Basically, the Defense Department and the EPA are doing like cooked up testing. Totally cooked up testing. They're not looking at half of the things that could be contaminating your groundwater. As Shiva, you're damn right they're killing us with GMOs as well. I haven't even gotten to animal agriculture and GMOs. We'll get to that eventually with Status Coup. And check my Twitter, because I'm magically, while I'm live here, also tweeting shout-outs to my Super Chat people. Not really. Jen's doing it. So thank you, Jen. So here's an example. Here's an example of the results of the EPA and the Defense Department essentially doing half-baked testing. This is in Florida. Florida community raises alarm about potential cancer link to water contamination. So if you live in Florida, pay attention. Whitney Prieto was diagnosed last September with stage 2B triple-negative breast cancer. She was 35, early in her pregnancy with twins, and said she had no family history or genetic mutations that could make her especially susceptible to the serious disease. Prieto said that she knew of 6 or 7 classmates from Satellite High School in Satellite Beach, Florida, who were also diagnosed with uncommon cancers when she was diagnosed, but that she now knows about 20, all at about the same time. She said the types of cancers being diagnosed in her classmates, now in their 20s and 30s, raised a red flag, but particularly concerning was that what she read in an article in the Military Times in April. Remember I just told you the Defense Department and the EPA have basically been covering up half of what is causing people illness and not even testing for a good chunk of things? The article reported that wells used to monitor groundwater contaminants at nearby Patrick Air Force Base showed levels of chemicals from military firefighting foam higher than what the Environmental Protection Agency considered safe. Prieto is demanding the state find out if the test results and cancer rates among her and her former classmates are connected. Quote, "We could all be linked because of this common source, and from there it's just amazing how many stories we have now," she said, adding, "It's alarming, it's very alarming, and the information that's come out in these citizen meetings, it's eye-opening. The chemicals found in the groundwater wells at Patrick Air Force Base go by the acronym PFOS or PFOA. Both are suspected of harming development in children, interfering with hormones or cholesterol levels, affecting the immune system, or increasing the risk of cancer, according to the Centers for Disease Control. But the situation in Satellite Beach is not clear-cut. The EPA's recommended limit for PFOS and PFOA is specific to drinking water, but the test at Patrick Air Force Base involved groundwater at the base. A spokesperson for the Florida Department of Environmental Protection told ABC News that drinking water systems in Brevard County, which includes Satellite Beach, tested negative for PFOS and PFOA. When potentially dangerous levels of PFOS and PFOA were discovered in drinking water supplies at 19 military installations, the Air Force moved to clean them up. But it hasn't yet done the same for groundwater unless nearby residents were also using it as drinking water. The Air Force has been investigating PFOS and PFOA at all its facilities since about 2010 and began to replace firefighting foam that includes the chemicals. The Air Force did not comment for this story, but Maureen Sullivan, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Environment, Safety and Occupational Health, told the Military Times the Defense Department has made changes at bases where drinking water was affected by contamination to cut off human exposure as soon as possible. Yeah, but what does that do for the people that have already been made sick? What does changing it now do? You could have decades and decades of people you've made sick, including, what did she say, 20 or so women undiagnosed, not just women, who were also diagnosed with uncommon cancers in their 20s and 30s. By the way, this is happening in East Chicago, Indiana. You have full blocks of people with cancer. This is happening in North Carolina, where it was recently shown that, what was the company called? The company used to be DuPont, and they spun off. Gen X was dumping all of those PFOAs, chemicals, into the Cape Fear River for over a decade, which causes cancer. The chickens are coming to roost. Chickens are coming home to roost, folks. You have companies as well as the U.S. government who have been contaminating groundwater for decades. And just now, it's starting to come out. These insanely high levels. There was an army base near Ohio where they found contaminated groundwater right next to the army base. There was an army base also, I believe, in Oregon where they found contaminated groundwater from the same firefighting foam. So I would not only check the local industrial polluters near you that might be dumping into your drinking water, because that's in part what made the Flint River so contaminated, was General Motors dumping in that river since the earliest 20th century. Also check, do you have military bases near you? And what kind of chemicals have they been releasing since World War I and II and III? Well, II. And has there ever been any testing in your groundwater to make sure those chemicals are not in your groundwater? And by the way, folks, yes, EPA, terrible under Trump, was terrible under Pruitt, is terrible under Pruitt's replacement. But all of this stuff is pre-Trump and has nothing to do with Trump. Basically, we allowed military buildup in this country with pretty much no environmental checks, and we allowed industrial buildup in this country with pretty much no environmental checks. And now the chickens are coming home to roost, and unfortunately, we don't have a media that wants to cover this stuff because it's not sexy and it's not scandalous. I think it is pretty scandalous when American citizens are poisoned, either by lead, by cancer-causing chemicals, by chemicals used in cookware. Accidents happen, but this is no longer an accident. This is systematic, and by the media's silence, they're helping to cover it up. They're helping to cover it up. We will not. Status quo will cover stories like this, not from our homes, but out on the ground, because we think it's very important that you know what the hell you're putting in your body and what in your community is at risk. Whether it's air, water, wildlife, it doesn't matter. That's what we're going to do for Status Quo. So your help, your contributions make a big difference. So moving on from one story that gets no attention to a story that, it got a lot of attention when it fit the media narrative, but now not so much. Not so much. So did you hear? Did anybody hear that? I mean, this is like, it's just mind-blowing. It really is. But did anyone hear that the chemical inspectors, their initial report on the supposed, sarin gas attack in Doma back in April, that the neocons, the corporate media, NBC, ABC, CBS, the New York Times, MSNBC, CNN, we're all just regurgitating whatever the hell the Defense Department, the CIA, the FBI told them, that Assad gassed his people again and we have to go in, and Trump started bombing. No chemical weapons inspectors had gone in yet, but if the U.S. government says it's so, then it's so, right? If the U.S. government says it's so, it is so. Well, what do you know? The OPCW finds no evidence of sarin gas. Weapons inspectors have concluded that there were chlorinated chemicals in an attack on a Syrian rebel holdout that triggered retaliatory airstrikes from Britain, France, and the U.S. Chlorinated chemicals. But while they found evidence that chlorine was used, there was no proof of the use of sarin or any other nerve agent as claimed by the U.S. And we should really say as claimed by the U.S. corporate media, which just serves as stenographers for the U.S. government. And I'm reading a great book, actually, by Seymour Hersh, who I'm going to play a clip from Seymour Hersh as part of this story. You got to read, if you have time this summer, read Reporter. It's a memoir of Seymour Hersh, who's a great reporter's career. And he goes in depth on all of the examples that he dealt with in his career of the Associated Press, the New York Times, all the media companies he worked for, essentially just regurgitating lies the government fed them. It's really, really interesting and really, really infuriating at the same time. At least 70 people were killed and 500 more injured in attacks on Douma in eastern Ghouta in early April, which led to accusations that the Syrian government had used chemical weapons. But the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, inspectors entered Douma in the weeks after the attacks and have now revealed that 2 samples recovered from gas cylinders at the scene tested positive for chlorine. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has repeatedly denied using chemical weapons during the long-running civil war, although the OPCW has previously documented the systematic use of banned munitions, including sulfur, mustard gas, and sarin. The results show that no nerve agents or their degradation products were detected in the environmental samples or in the plasma samples taken from alleged casualties, the OPCW report states. Along with explosive residues, various chlorinated organic chemicals were found in samples from 2 sites for which there is full chain of custody. Work by the team to establish the significance of these results is ongoing. No blame has been appointed for any of the attacks in Syria investigated by the OPCW, with Russia accusing the UK of having staged the bombardment in April. Despite facing a backlash for not allowing MPs to vote on UK involvement in the retaliatory Western military action, Theresa May said at the time it was morally and legally right to respond. U.S. President Donald Trump was unapologetic for the strikes, which were focused on 3 chemical weapons and research facilities, describing the Syrian leader as an animal. So you would think, right? Oh, if I'm MSNBC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Associated Press, Reuters, the whole gang, you might want to do a little something on the fact that you just pretty much regurgitated as stenographers, whatever the hell, liars for the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, the Homeland Security told you. You might, because this wasn't like they did a 30-second segment on Assad gassing his people. I mean, there was a drumbeat. And, oh, Trump, he's acting so presidential by bombing Syria now. We have to respond to Assad gassing his people. Do we have evidence? Well, you know, we have to respond. Well, do we have evidence? Oh, we have to respond. Oh, do we have evidence? We have to respond. Crickets on this. I mean, the initial investigation from chemical weapon inspectors who took samples from victims and went down to the areas where these attacks happened. Chlorine, not sarin. So why is this important? Because it's madness. It's madness. We keep bombing countries. We keep invading countries with either totally fake intelligence or no intelligence at all. And this isn't just a Trump problem. This is a American problem. And we have a media that literally doesn't report anything. They just repeat. We have a media that doesn't report on anything. They just repeat what their sources, i.e. the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, tell them, because they don't want to lose access. And they don't want to seem unpatriotic. Because it's unpatriotic to say, hey, you know, do you want to wait till, like, the chemical inspectors go in before we bomb these countries? Because, you know, when you keep bombing these countries, you're only emboldening ISIS and Al-Qaeda and creating the next ISIS. Trumpies, Jordan, if this country is so bad, there are 2 borders, north and south, that will take you. Hey, don't tempt me. I've told Jen that I'm thinking of going to Canada. Hey, Trump's your uncle. If this live stream's so bad, there's the exit for you. Peace. I just find it so incredible that you literally, this media, right? rants about fake news. Rants about fake news and Breitbart and all these things. And they should. Fox News, propaganda. Unprecedented propaganda. You have Breitbart, propaganda. Rush Limbaugh, propaganda. I mean, a lot of propaganda out there. And they call for them to correct themselves. And they attack them. But they don't hold themselves to the same standard. Because when they repeat falsehoods and lies from the government, they do so proudly, they do so persistently, and they don't correct it at all. Because this isn't like, oh, we dropped bombs, a big deal, no harm done. No, no, no. This is what breeds terrorism. This is what breeds terrorism, when you're continually bombing other countries for no reason. Do I think Bashar al-Assad is a good person? Hell no. Do I think he's gassed his people in the past? I do think there's evidence he's gassed his people. At least once. Did I think there was evidence he did it this past time in Doma? No, I don't. It didn't make sense. He's pretty much won the war. The Syrian government, and the rebels were starting to negotiate. Trump's your uncle. MSNBC, CNN, PBS, NPR, all networks and big city newspapers equal propaganda. Exactly. Couldn't agree more. So I want to take you from one example where it just came out, no sarin gas, no nerve agents, no chemical weapons. No need to actually report on that. The New York Times had a brief article and barely even mentioned the fact that they were wrong and they helped spread a lie that helped bomb a country. We don't need to worry about that. But I want to play you part of Seymour Hersh, the journalist I just told you about, because he's basically, through his reporting, which I trust his reporting over CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, this is a man who has sources high up in the government and deep within the deep state. You're damn right the deep state exists. And he's saying Russia didn't hack the DNC or Podesta, and he has sources and evidence for that. But just like they repeated this bullshit about chemical and nerve sarin gas, which has now been proven to be untrue, they're still putting this stuff out there, fed to them by the U.S. government. So here is Seymour Hersh. He was on the Intercepted podcast, which is the Intercept podcast. It's really great with Jeremy Scahill. I want to play you just a little bit of what Seymour Hersh said. Here we go.
In the area where she reports that makes baby cribs, it used to be kids fell out of cribs because they could pull them down. Now they're much stronger. There's requirements that they have to make them to certain specifications. They got it changed. They lobbied to get it changed, a couple of companies, and because they can make an extra 17 cents per copy or whatever, it's being litigated. But that's the kind of stuff down the line that people should, I'd like to see more reporting of that. But, you know, that's in Plato's Republic maybe. We're going to stick to his tweets. You're not going to beat this guy unless you do something different.
There's this sort of metamorphosis that's taken place where, I mean, I will give Trump credit for getting Fox News and Sean Hannity to stop advocating for the total obliteration of North Korea. I mean, it's really interesting to compare how North Korean media reported on that and Fox News. It was very, very similar. But the MSNBC, the so-called liberal network, is just beating the drums for war and having on an endless string of generals to criticize this, and you have the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, basically saying we need to put more sanctions. We also have a very uncritical reporting or repeating every allegation against Trump. No matter how wild it is, it just must be true because it's Trump. And it's like all standards are completely gone, particularly when we're covering the issue of election interference. And I'm wondering, a year and a half ago when we spoke, you were very critical of the way that the broader news media was reporting on the so-called Trump-Russia affair. Has your assessment changed at all, and is that a legit story?
Wow, you go right to it, don't you? Let's just start with this premise. After 9/11, before we invaded Iraq, we were told by the American intelligence community that they had high confidence. That phrase was said again and again, that Saddam Hussein had WMDs. They're saying now the same thing about Russia. I have been reporting something, I've been watching something since 2011 in Libya, when we had a Secretary of State that later ran for president. And I will tell you, some stories take a long time. and I don't know quite how to package it. I don't know how much to say about it. I will assure you that there's no known intelligence that Russia impacted, cut into the DNC Podesta emails. That did not happen. I can say that. I can also say Russia learned other things about what was going on in Libya with us, and instead of blowing, oh God, this is too tantalizing. Why do you ask me these questions? We deal with Russia a lot. We deal with Russia much more than you know. We coordinate with Russia even in the worst of times. They say deconfliction. Deconfliction, I'm going to digress, but deconfliction is the notion that when we're flying, any American pilot wants to know where the Russian planes are, where the Syrian planes, or where the Iranian planes are during the war there. That war's pretty much over. The Kurds have made a big concession. And whether you like it or not, a lot of people hate Bashar Assad, and he's despicable, but you name me a guy in the Middle East that isn't. You know, the Saudis, they're better. I mean, you know, you tell me. Anyway, the beginning of deconfliction, it was a small group of very, very secret offices in America and our allies, the French, particularly the Brits, all of our allies after World War II and during the Cold War. If we were going to kill somebody, and this is, I hate to say it, America does do these things. If we were going to kill somebody, we had to set up a form to make sure the person we were going to kill, overseas maybe, wasn't an asset of one of our allies. And that's how deconfliction started. So it was just a back channel. And so Russia deals on a very sophisticated level with the United States, with people in Israel, with people in Iran, I mean, it's just amazing. There is a background of cooperation and military cooperation, because despite all the feelings about Russia, they have one thing in common with us. It's nothing to do whether you like Putin or don't like Putin, or whether you don't like the government or you like the government. They're against the kind of terrorism we're similarly against. And there was a lot of pressure on Bush and Cheney after 9/11 by the rational people in the government. The first stop should have been not to declare a war on an idea, which is, everybody knows this, how stupid that was. I mean, how are we doing? 18 years in Afghanistan, how's it going? You know, against the Taliban, which didn't do the bombing against us. That was the bin Laden anyway. I'm trying to parse words here.
I realize I put you in a difficult position.
The fact of the matter is, if Russia wanted to cause a lot of difficulty to the American election, they could have. Instead, they went and talked privately to us. So when the government says Russia intercepted stuff that was very important to us, I'm being very fuzzy about it. It wasn't about the election. They told us that there were certain people in America doing things that were very deleterious to the war on terrorism for personal and financial gain. And they could have blown it publicly, but they went internally to us. And this is a real difficulty, because it's a story. I did this memoir in between. I couldn't do my Cheney book because of a source issue. And I did this memoir during the time and all that stuff. But basically, I'm still doing it because it's a great fucking story. But I can't tell you more about it. You know, Jesus, Jeremy, now I'm being coy. I don't want to be coy.
No, there's been 22 indictments. A lot of it has nothing to do with the direct allegation that's being made around the clock. There are some interesting questions about meetings in Trump Tower, particularly the role of Don Jr., Jared Kushner, and others. They seem to be all somehow gravitating toward calling Russians connected to the Kremlin, meeting with them, setting up meetings. General Flynn is on the phone, not so much to collude with Russia, but to collude with Israel and to try to get Russia to advocate the Trump position at the UN while the Obama administration was still in power. It's like Iran-Contra for dummies in some ways. Everything that we know about all of the circumstantial evidence there, are you saying that that is just that it's circumstantial and they happen to be constantly having these meetings on the phone, doing things to subvert the Obama administration before they took office?
I'll tell you what somebody told me who actually knows something, which is none of us do. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I don't know what Mueller's doing. I know he's seen the tax stuff early, and he didn't indict. There wasn't enough there to indict, which is really interesting to me. Somebody who actually...
You're talking about Trump's tax returns? Or
he got it right away. Somebody knows something about how the meetings go.
This is what it's like, though, when you talk to an actual, real investigative reporter. Cy likes to say, that's my business, don't ask me about that.
Stumbles, he mumbles.
No, you're trying to figure out how to talk about something you shouldn't be talking about.
This is something he said to me. Collusion involves, this is somebody been firsthand, This isn't like you read in the Washington Post 19 interviews with people that maybe know something, you know. My favorite thing is on MS and NBC and CNN, and even the other idiot channel. They're all pretty idiot channels. I mean, it's the lowest form of journalism is what the cable news does. When you get a panel going and the narrator says to the panel, journalists are there and politicos and others, they say, what's going on now in the White House? And they all begin with the most lethal 2 words in the world, I think. Because nobody knows nothing. Nobody says, how the hell do I know? Which is the right answer most of the time. So somebody who really does know something, he said, here's the thing about collusion and Trump. Collusion suggests, this is literally what he did with the coffee cup, there were 2 of them. He said, collusion suggests that Trump does this because he knows how it's going to impact this. And he said, the reason you can't get mens rea because it's all impulse. He does this, period. But wait, I'm serious. But I'll tell you how it works. I'll give you an example. I'll give you a secret. Okay, you want a secret? Okay.
It's just you and me here anyway.
Yeah, right. Trump goes to see the North Korean creep, right? And 6 months ago, they were like 2 pit bulls with a wire fence between them having a ball, going at each other. So now he's going. And, of course, everybody's mocking it, the Democrats in particular, which, again, will they please articulate a policy? You know? Well,
I could play that a little longer, but you get the gist. So why I played that is you have an actual journalist, not the CNN journalist, not the MSNBC journalist, not the New York Times, who literally just regurgitates what the CIA, the FBI, and Homeland Security and the Department of Defense tell them. Like, Seymour Hersh left corporate media years ago, and he doesn't get talked about. He's not on the Sunday shows. He's not invited on CNN because he doesn't regurgitate what government liars tell him. And Seymour Hersh said something very powerful and very matter of fact. And I trust him because knowing his record, he's rarely wrong. Said, John Podesta and the DNC weren't hacked by Russia. I've been saying I have seen no forensic evidence that Russia hacked the DNC or John Podesta. I've seen a lot of circumstantial evidence. I've seen a lot of speculation, but I've never seen any actual evidence of such. So you have a journalist who has won awards for investigative reporting, did monumentally important reporting on Vietnam and the atrocities at My Lai, I think it was called. The bombings which killed, I believe, over 100 innocent Vietnamese. So you have Seymour Hersh basically saying, yeah, no, I've spoken with sources that know. And I've seen evidence that, yeah, no. DNC, Podesta, not hacked by Russia. Seen evidence that Russia actually found out information about American plutocrats doing some shady things when it comes to Libya to enrich themselves, and instead of going public, just told their American counterparts. Why don't we hear about that on the news? Why is he not invited on? Why don't we get this perspective? Why don't we have journalists asking him, well, can you tell us more? I mean, it's mind-boggling. He said 2 or 3 things in that 10-minute clip that is more actual reporting and information than we've heard from all of the corporate media combined on Russia and interference in 2 years. It's unreal. So why I played that is to go along with this OPCW report. The media and the corporate media is not here to tell you the truth. They're not here to investigate anything. They're not here to inform you on anything. Particularly, they don't want to actually spend money to have people go out and investigate. I'm an example. I was just in Flint for 2 weeks. I was talking to one outlet in particular. They wanted the story and the bombshell story that I'm about to reveal, that I'm working on now, but they didn't want to pay for me to actually be out there and knock on doors. So there's not an interest in actually breaking real news. There's not an interest in actually saying, all right, the government tells me this. Let me go look here because I think they might be lying. Or maybe I shouldn't just automatically believe what they're telling me. Another thing he reported that I haven't heard from anyone, that Mueller got Trump's tax returns right away. Wasn't enough in there to indict him. Have you heard that from anyone? Again, Seymour Hersh, no slouch, won some serious awards. Worked for the Associated Press, the New York Times, Chicago paper too. I trust when he says this. So, Seymour Hersh, Podesta, DNC, not hacked by Russia, sorry. Trump's tax returns, Mueller got him right away. Not enough to indict. And that apparently there's some Americans that enriched themselves off of us destroying Libya. Thank you, Hillary Clinton, by the way, for destroying Libya. And Russia found out about it, but instead of going public, told America. By the way, this isn't me being like, oh, Putin's great and Russia's great. Of course, Russia did try send an army of online trolls and all that stuff to interfere in the election and to confuse voters and all these things. It's called propaganda. It's not Pearl Harbor. It's basically social media bots. You know who else does that? David Brock, ran Hillary Clinton's super PAC. Social media propaganda is not unique to Russia. It happens here in America. But Russia has been made into this boogeyman for the Democratic Party with no evidence. Zero forensic evidence that Russia hacked anyone. So I think it's pretty big news when we bombed a country in Syria on the media just cheerleading, oh, Assad gasses people. Well, it just came out that's not true. It's a lie. L-I-E. Spell it with me, folks. Lie. And I think it's pretty big news when one of the most prestigious journalists in America today, over the last 50 years, says, yeah, no, I have evidence and I have sources that DNC not hacked. Podesta not hacked, at least by Russia. So everything the media has been telling you for the last 2.5 years, bullshit. And as I end today, and to remind you folks, I am feeling a little super. I'm feeling super. This is a super chat, so you can leave contributions if you so choose. We've had a couple today, so I just want to make sure you know there is an option to leave money in the super chat, which helps us get back on the road, pay for marketing, pay for equipment, pay for a lot of things that we need. We're going to boost up the marketing and advertisement so people know. And as a reminder, this channel very, very soon will become Status Coup on YouTube instead of Jordan Chariton Reports. And we'll also have statuscoup.com to launch in the very, very near future. So a lot of things are coming, a lot of changes coming. So I appreciate everyone helping. Either super chat me, Patreon, also jordanchariton.com/sponsor. So I thought we'd end on a lighter note. According to Nancy Pelosi, she is a legislative virtuoso. Nancy Pelosi, the House Minority Leader, who apparently said, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez victory doesn't mean anything, that she knocked off the number 4 most powerful Democrat in the country. Doesn't mean anything. Is there a wave of socialism sweeping the Democratic Party? No. No. Do we need Medicare for all? No. No. Danielle, thank you for the $2. Great chat. Looking forward to the great reporting. Danielle, you wait for this Flint story. I'm going to blow your mind. Jen is going to blow your mind too. She was a big part of getting that story. Thank you, thank you. Even $2 makes a difference, so thank you. Nancy Pelosi, in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, she thinks she's just terrific. Just terrific. The person asked her, we've seen consecutive Republican speakers flame out, essentially because they didn't deal with the insurgency on their right flank. What is your secret to keeping Democrats united? I'm really good at what I do. I'm a legislative virtuoso. I really love legislating. It takes knowledge and experience, institutional memory. I was forged in the Intelligence Committee and especially the Appropriations Committee. I know how you could reach agreement. Oh boy. A legislative virtuoso, this one. A legislative virtuoso. You know what else Nancy Pelosi thinks? She believes people are stupid. She believes people are stupid. Because what is the Democratic Party's message? You heard Seymour Hersh ask, what is the message here? Nancy Pelosi says, we've had a message for a year working with the Senate. Our agenda, a better deal. Better jobs, better pay, better future. It took 8 months or so to put it together, to come to agreement. The members shaped this. It wasn't something where I said, this is what I think it should be. Now sell it. It was, what do you think it should be? It's very important that it springs from the members. And when people say, well, it doesn't inspire me, it inspires me because it's about the economy. Oh my God, where do you even begin with this? First of all, like, sorry if I'm hurting my Hillary Clinton supporters in this chat. A better deal is the equivalent of stronger together. What the hell does that mean? What does that mean? Medicare for all, that's a message. Free public college, that's a message. Ending private prisons, that's a message. Raising taxes on the wealthy, that's a message. Cutting the defense budget in half, that's a message. A better deal is like a Domino's commercial. I prefer Papa John's, but I digress. I mean, it took you 8 months to come up with a better deal, which essentially was written by pollsters and focus groups. It doesn't mean anything. It's not going to win you an election. A better deal. What does that mean? A better deal, but we're not gonna tax Wall Street, and we're not gonna put any Wall Streeters in jail, and we're not gonna try to give health care to all Americans because it would hurt the insurance companies, and we're not gonna try to save the planet because we can't really alienate our fossil fuel donors, and we're not gonna try to lower prescription drug prices because our pharmaceutical donors, and we're not gonna try Medicare for all because pharmaceutical companies. And what about it doesn't inspire people? Well, it inspires me. It inspires me. Well, if only the bar for changing America was how do we inspire Nancy Pelosi? How did I not know that's what we were supposed to be doing all this time? Is this my white privilege speaking? You know, Nancy Pelosi can think she's a legislative virtuoso. I don't agree, but you're not an electoral virtuoso. We've lost 1,000 seats under your leadership, and Obama, frankly. Maybe less virtuosity, if that's a word, and some new ideas. Let me tell you something. If Nancy Pelosi came out tomorrow, put aside, shunned her donors that I just referenced, that said we need to move to Medicare for all, we need to move to wind and solar today, we need to move to end private prisons, we need to move for free public college, we need to raise taxes on the wealthy a big amount. I'm saying I think we need the top bracket to be closer to 45 to 50%. And we need, say it with me, to cut the defense budget at the minimum by 50%. I'd wear Nancy Pelosi t-shirts. It's not personal. But the fact that she pretty much dismissed a historic victory by a woman of color, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whose victory wasn't just about that district, but I think it says a lot about the whole country, her message and her policies. Nancy Pelosi basically did nothing for the DACA children, even when Obama was president. Nancy Pelosi says, we're a capitalist country, all right? Remember she said that during a town hall with CNN? We're capitalists. Nancy Pelosi says she's effective because she has fundraised an ungodly amount of money. They're still in this mentality that it's all about the money. It's all about raising money. It's not all about raising money. Joe Crowley was beating Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I think 10-1. He got his clock cleaned by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Trump outspent 2-1. Beat Hillary Clinton in the Electoral College. Amars, 199. Thank you. Are you familiar with MMT? A little bit. Not fully, but I've looked into MMT. Thank you for your contribution. Nancy Pelosi, just get out of the way. It's not a gender thing. I'm not mansplaining. I'm not being sexist. But you are for the old way of doing things, and the old way of doing things is why we have Trump. Putting forth, you cannot defeat extreme conservatism. I don't even think Trump is extreme conservatism. I think Trump is Trump. He's not a conservative. He's not anything. He's just Trump. He has no ideology. You cannot beat somebody like Trump with empty slogans and even more empty rhetoric. There needs to be some actual meat, or quinoa for my vegan friends. There needs to be some actual meat on the bone, or quinoa for my vegan friends. You need actual policies that inspire people. And single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all, is very popular. So is free public college. So is eliminating student loan debt, or at least cutting it in half. And let me tell you something. If the Democratic candidate would say we need to cut the Defense Department budget in half, that would be a popular message, including among independents. But if the people coming after me on Twitter saying I'm responsible for Trump and the Supreme Court, if they want to keep going after people like me but not actually go after Nancy Pelosi and ask, hey, Nancy, what are you going to do different here? A better deal is not a message. That's not going to beat Trump. Watch us keep Trump in power, because that's what's going to happen. Plantastic Life, $5. Thank you. Keep speaking truth to power. I shall. I shall. And I'm speaking truth to power. My throat is killing me. I'm telling you, something's wrong. These allergies are killing me because my throat's all raspy and hurting. So I've been playing a little hurt today, but that's that. So as I end, as a reminder, folks, we will be launching Status Quo sooner than later, probably in the next month. You can become a Patreon at patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. You could get my podcast there, which I'm going to start again this week, and video diaries. And I'm going to talk to Jen, but I want to do a monthly video, our video call with you guys, probably this weekend. We'll do a video call, and you can ask me anything, and I could give you guys some exclusive information that isn't out there yet. So that's patreon.com/Jordan Sheridan Reports. That's where you'll get my podcast, the video diaries, as well as this weekend. I think we're going to do it this weekend, actually. Exclusive video call with me and all of you. So thank you for your help, your support. Remember, most people aren't lacking compassion. Most people do not know what the fuck is going on. Peace out.